to Valkenburg. This is the women's under-23 UCI Cyclo-cross World Championship. The weather's pretty similar to what it was before here in Valkenburg, up at the top of the Cowberg, the famed climb of the Amstel Gold. The crowd is building all the time as we get ready for racing. Everyone's out, all the different nationalities, the different costumes, as we take here a look at the course. 2.9 kilometers. Simon Burney alongside me. Simon, yet again, just take a look at this course. We got a good chance in the last race to have a look at it, but it's changing as the racing continues and as the day continues.
Slightly, yeah. The mud's getting deeper and thicker, if anything. Maybe drying out slightly in some areas, but it's so wet, so muddy that yeah, it's not going to change significantly. It's not going to make any differences to, you know, race strategy, preparation, equipment, those kind of things. This is a muddy race. It's yeah. We probably haven't seen one as hard as this. Hoogleder Gits, probably 10 years ago now, more was muddy, but not as hilly as this. This is like a Namur World Cup with thick mud. And I think you were talking to Marianne Vos that said it was as a harder course as she'd come across in her career, and I think that's correct. You know, there's very little recovery on it.
Yeah, I was just talking to Marianne just in between the two races. She was going around the course to warm up, and as you just mentioned, I said to her, right, how hard is this course? And she said, this course is extremely hard, harder than Namur. There's no recovery. It's strength sapping, and it's incredibly tough.
Yeah, and it's technical kind of in a way thrown in as well. It's so slippery. There's so much camber sections, both directions. So you know, one minute you got your left foot out, next minute it's your right foot out. The ruts are getting deeper, and that's going to become an issue on the sections that have been used for training. Some of the sections they kept clear from training, but the sections that have been used for the last 2 days in training, and then obviously the racing this morning, the ruts are getting deeper, and yeah, it's going to start causing issues, that, because they'll get so deep that you'll catch pedals, you'll catch derailleurs, and you start getting mechanical problems as a result. But if you come out of the rut, it is so slippery as well. So it's a challenge, and I think these young women are going to experience the toughest cyclo-cross world championships we've seen for decades, probably.
Well, here they are. This rider, Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado, is a rider who many people have tipped as a medalist. Alongside her, number 37, Laura Verdonschot, another rider tipped for a medal here, 4th in 2017. There's Emma White, the hope of the United States of America. A big smile from her. Evie Richards. So much pressure on this rider's shoulders. Whether she's showing it or not is a different matter, but everyone is saying she is way the hot favourite. Nadia Heigl of Austria alongside Evie Richards. Then we have the rider from Canada. This is Ruby West. 40 riders taken to the start line. Fleur Nijengast of the Netherlands, hoping to give the Netherlands another medal. And we're about to be under orders, and we're about to get this race underway. 30 seconds until this race starts. Simon, this start, all important. You've got to get a very good start off this this line, because not a lot of tarmac to play with. No, it's a very, very short start straight, and then straight down a drop, right-hand turn into the woods, first section. And in those woods, there's roots and there's some rocks starting to pop up as well. But the first two drops are significant after this start. You're probably hitting the dirt at 40k an hour. You know, they're full gas down here. And it's a challenge, this first right-hander. Here we go then, through the line the first time. Plunging downhill and then round the right-hander at the bottom. There was a big crash in the junior race, but we haven't had a crash yet in the under-23 women. And right at the front is Emma White of the United States of America. A great start by her, 8th in 2017. And of course, 3 times the junior cyclo-cross champion in the United States, rides for rally cycling in her road career, but she's opening up a nice little lead here. Evie Richards not getting the start she wanted, back there in third place.
Well, I think she'll be fine with that, Evie. I think, I haven't said that, little slip, but she'll be fine. It's that first front row start and just keeping your position. I think you're looking at the other two Brits there, Harriet Hardin and Anna Kay, were just great starts from both of those two. Come back off row 3, row 4, I think, to get into the top 10 after the first section in the woods. So great starts from the Brits. But I don't think Evie will be too stressed about that little slip, or
as long as the gears are okay.
Yeah, always. I think actually I heard from one of the spectators that were watching that we talked about Sean Flynn in the junior race, and I think he snapped his derailleur off in that crash that we saw with Kopecky when he crashed into the barrier.
Yeah,
he snapped a derailleur, and yeah, end of his race at the front for sure. Not he was able to finish, but.
Anna Kay now in third place for Great Britain, as we see at the front then Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado, and she is the rider and few people have tipped as the winner of this race. 7th in 2017, and she's got a good start. Of course, riding in front of a home crowd always gives you that little bit of extra motivation to do even better than you normally can do. So a few riders just trying to find their line, and find another crash there by one of the Czech Republic riders and one of the Italians also. Just hitting the deck, but not too hard at all. So at the front then, it is Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado who goes through the pits and has got 3 seconds advantage on Emma White of the United States of America. Evie Richards now in third place, 7 seconds down.
We talked earlier about the splitting out of the junior women for the World Championships in 2020. And just looking at the start list here, there's 6 or 7 16-year-olds or riders who are 16 or turning 17 in 2018 in this race. And it's so encouraging to see the younger women taking the sport at this level, because they've never had an opportunity before. They don't have a Junior Women's World Cup. So the fact that the federations are supporting the younger riders to do this is great for the future in a couple of years when they get their own World Championships. But you see there, Harriet Hardin, she's 16 years old and she's riding herself into the top 10 in an Under-23 World Championships.
Yeah. That's amazing to see. And there are so many, you're right, the young riders that are in here. Emma White, the rider at the front now, who's another young rider, who's just going clear here. Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado. She seems to be riding really strongly on this course, is just finding her way through the mud. But a few of the write-ups of those in the know. Oops, as she suddenly just loses the rut there. So tough around this corner now, isn't it?
And this is how it's going to be. You can see Evie there, Evie Richards just scooting along, and that rut is, you know, it's covering the top of the rim for sure. It's near the derailleur, and it's such a challenge to make it around those corners. Again, we don't get the perception of how steep the camber is and how tight it is. It's
well, I mean, you walked around it yesterday and you came back absolutely covered in mud.
It took me nearly an hour to walk whatever it is, 2.9k. It's ridiculous. It's so, even walking it is it's a hard day out.
It just shows how suddenly you kick and that's it. You're in a totally different line than that you wanted.
And you see Evie there. She's off the back of a bike, just like she will be on a mountain bike on a steep descent, off the back of the saddle. Weight distribution crucial, but she knows all about that. She knows where to put her body on a bike to get the best of the, well, in this best of the grip as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the way the technical competence of some of these young women who just know exactly how to get the right traction, get round the corners, and they're riding differently to how the junior men did. Just technically very, very strong. And we know the way Evie Richards prepares for a race, you can see once she gets near a front of a race, she doesn't give anything away to anybody. Doesn't matter whether you're in a elite race or you're in an under-23, she forces her strength on you, doesn't she? Straight
does.
away.
I think there was an interview with her recently that she said that she doesn't really have a game plan in a race. She just goes and tries as hard as she can, and that's how she races. And there's no real, I'm not saying there's any thought behind it. There's an awful lot of thought behind it, but she's just. Somebody described the under-23 women's race last year as being ferocious, and I think that sums her up perfectly. They just race, yeah, they just want to race, and riders like Evie kind of epitomised that. See there, Harriet Hardin, 16 years old, 3rd place, incredible.
Yeah.
Coached by Tracy Mosley, come out of the Liam Killeen School of mountain bike and off-road riding in Malvern in the UK. And,
part of the Malvern Massive.
Absolutely, yeah, just incredibly motivating group of people around her to but again, at that age, the future is there for her, and now she can see it. She won't be a junior in 2 years' time when there is a junior world championship, but then she's got 3 more years of under-23 world championships. And for young women like her to have a pathway into the sport is, yeah, it's been a while coming, and I don't think we can say it's overdue, but certainly now it's happening. It's to be embraced.
So Simon, tell us, for those of us who don't know about the shoes, we talked about a little bit in the junior race, but let's recap here as we saw that foot shot of everyone running along. The riders are allowed to have studs in these shoes to give them a bit more grip.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't really a cyclo-cross shoe as such. Most people make a mountain bike shoe, and a mountain bike shoe is a very stiff sole, so usually carbon or a very stiff rubber sole. So there's not a lot of give in the shoe. So you don't get a significant amount of grip from the shoe tread. So you need something in the front. So there's usually 2 threaded holes in the front of the shoe, and you can just change out studs or spikes, whatever the conditions are. So in a race like this, obviously it's so muddy, so slippery, you'd have your longest studs in that you can find. Yeah, it's just a slightly different technique with a stud in, sliding your foot onto the pedal. Occasionally you catch the stud on the pedal, which means you don't engage quite as quickly. But again, at this level, they do it all the time, so it's not a big issue. And that's pretty much what keeps you upright when you're on your feet. You know, we'll see it on the big run up later in the lap. But yeah, it's difficult to anybody that walks in road cycling shoes knows how hard that is, and these shoes are basically that with a rubber tread on. But studs make all the difference. Yeah,
studs will make a massive difference today, as we see at the front of the race. Then Evie Richards starting to open up a tiny advantage now on the other British rider, Harriet Hardin, 16 years of age. Harriet Hardin in 2nd place in a World Championship, and we know she's super strong. Simon and I commentated on the British National Championships, and Harriet Hardin was one of those riders who was up there in a race that Evie Richards absolutely dominated, rode away. But today, she's staying with her.
Incredible. I'm overwhelmed by how great she's doing in her first World Championships. It's awesome to see. And you know, it's not just the young women as well. Won't dwell on the fact they're in this category and they're all racing against each other. So it's the difference there between Evie Richards on her feet and Del Carmen Alvarado is significant. And Evie is so comfortable running. Does a lot of running in training, happy on her feet, and this is where it's going to make the difference. You know, Evie, she'll get off early, and she'll be quite happy running along. Again, kind of running with the bike on the shoulder for some of the smaller women is a challenge, because the bikes are small. It's hard to get them on the shoulder. A lot different with a 46-centimetre bike, for example, than a 54-centimetre bike that a medium-sized guy might be, or a woman might be using. So running it's very difficult. It's not easy. And again, in these conditions, I was walking around struggling to be able to run around this. Some sections on this course is so hard. But
yeah. Well, let's take a look here in the pit. So it's Great Britain 1-2, United States of America with Emma White producing another great performance in the World Championship, 8th in 2017. Emma White's one of the very talented young American riders not just in cyclocross, but on the road as well, as Harriet Hardin takes a little glance around. Del Carmen Alvarado is 4th. Then we have Safarova of the Czech Republic in 5th. Nadia Heigl of Austria in 6th. Fleur Nagengast of the Netherlands is in 7th place. Then Laura Verdonschot, who pulled her foot out on the start line, from Belgium in 8th. Then Sara Casasola is in 9th. And then in 10th place, we have Marion Norbe of France. That's the rundown of the top 10 riders. If you would like to ask Simon and I any questions, at UCI_CX is where you can get hold of us. Craig Ansell wondering what is the number of laps going to be, and we'll get an indication shortly, because we're getting towards the end of this first lap. I think it's going to be 4 laps by the looks of things.
I think it's going to be 3, honestly.
Really?
Well, I think it's going to be 12 minutes by the time Evie reaches the finish line.
And what's the minimum time for the under-23?
Well, it should be close to 40 minutes, but I think, yeah, we'll leave it to the commissaires, that one. It's either going to be 2 or 3 minutes under, or it's going to be 4 or 5 minutes over, I think. So we'll see what they decide.
Evie Richards going stamping her way up the stairs. She is such a good runner. It's been interesting the last couple of hours here in the commentary box, as all the international commentators ask Simon and I about Evie Richards and why she's not riding the elite race. We'll cover that in a second as she crosses the line. The world champion 2 years ago is leading again. She's never been off the podium in the under-23 world title. And Evie Richards is going to come up to complete her first lap in the lead. There are going to be 3 laps in this women's under-23 race, 12 minutes and 9 seconds. It's going to give them 37 minutes of racing, which is just about where it should be.
I think it's going to be 38 and a half, 39-ish by the time they've slowed down a bit on the last couple of laps.
Yeah.
So it's fine. That's ballpark. I think one more lap would have been wouldn't have added anything to the race as far as the result goes, and I think it would have just stretched it out a little bit too much. So it's just a situation we get where the lap is quite long distance-wise. It's ballpark, but again, the conditions just make it so slow. I'm sure if this was an October World Cup on the same course, we would be seeing 3 minutes, maybe faster.
Yeah, it's so hard out here. Harriet Hardin holding 2nd place for Great Britain. And behind her is Emma White. Those of you asking a few questions about other riders. Clara Honsinger of the United States of America is in 11th place. Ruby West of Canada is 16th right now. Emma Swartz of the United States of America 21st. Yara Gillespie of Ireland is running 22nd right now. And the first Spanish rider, Axel Bellet, is running in the top 30-odd right. In fact, 29th right now, for those of you asking about different nationalities. Don't forget also you can get the live timing. If you go to the UCI.ch website, you'll be able to find a link to the live timing, and that'll give you updates on all the riders who are in the field. But we'll do our best to try and update you as much as we possibly can as to how everyone is doing and where the different nationalities are, as Evie Richards sprints her way along this section where she is making up time on everybody with that sprinting prowess. And now this gap is 21 seconds to the 2nd place rider. Harriet Hardin being chased down now by Emma White, the more experienced rider. Hardin, I saw a nice little interview with her just before the start. She said there's no feeling quite like your first World Championships, and she didn't even expect to be here. A dream come true as far as she's concerned.
So anything on top of that's a bonus, and that just takes the pressure off, and then she can just enjoy the experience and use it as experience. But I think right now she's exceeding most expectations. And if she can hang in that either medal position or top 5 position, I think it's a great day for her.
Now, just a question I just touched on as Evie came across the line for the first time. There's been loads of discussion. Oops, as Emma White takes a tumble. Loads of discussion here in the commentary box from all the other international commentators wondering and asking us, why is Evie Richards riding the under-23 race when she's won a World Cup, and why wouldn't she want to go out there and mix it with Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, Lucinda Brand, Marianne Vos, Sanne Cant, and try and win the Elite World title? It's her decision, isn't it?
It's absolutely her, well, it's her decision whether they apply for dispensation to move up and race out of category. We've seen it in the men before, so Mathieu van der Poel, Lars van der Haar have done it. Just watching Evie Richards there, just almost sitting on a back wheel. The weight is so far back, but it's so steep down there.
Sorry for the silence then, our screens went black.
Yeah.
I was a bit worried.
But yeah, it is absolutely the decision of Evie Richards in the first place, and then the federation to request a dispensation. And I think, honestly, I think Evie's happy racing in category. I know at the national championships there was some frustration that the federation didn't allow her to race elite when, again, she already won the under-23 national title before. She'd won an Elite World Cup by that time as well, and I think it would have been good for both categories to allow her to race elite at national championships. But I think in World Championships, it's a rider's personal choice how they decide to do it. And from a UCI point of view, the UCI would only look at a rider that's won or able to compete in and be very competitive in the medals at the elite level. So, you know, in the case of Van der Poel and Van der Haar, then they were able to medal in elite competition as under-23s, and I think we'd probably see the same with Evie Richards. But yeah, absolutely her decision to stay in, and I think, you know, as far as career progression goes, she's got a lot of time ahead of her. She'd probably be the first to admit that cyclo-cross maybe isn't her first discipline. I think she's a mountain biker first and the cyclo-cross rider second, which is why we don't see her racing the whole World Cup series and the other races. So it kind of makes sense in a lot of respects.
Well, I'm sure we'll see Evie Richards at some point try and win the elite race. But those of you wondering a little bit more detail, of course, most British funding goes into Olympic sports, and Evie Richards is a hope for the mountain bike at the Olympic Games. Yeah,
and I think that's every federation. I think all federations face that same challenge with balancing the books and how they spend their money, and most of their funding comes from funding agencies that look at Olympic disciplines. So cyclo-cross, mountain bike downhill tend to be on the kind of the short receiving end of money that's available. So yeah, she's Evie Richards is funded to be a mountain biker with a view to the Tokyo Olympic mountain bike race medal. That's her plan, and yeah, cyclo-cross makes sense to her in the winter. A little bit of preparation, but also to add her experience and to target events like this where she can go for world titles.
Nadia Heigl is making her way towards second place. There's been a real surge by her over this last lap. The Austrian rider, who's also a rider, was tipped for a possible medal here, and she's making her way through the field. She's catching Harriet Hardin, the British rider, and actually these front three riders are now opening up a big advantage on the fourth place rider. So Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado is now 40 seconds behind Evie Richards and about 15 seconds behind this duo here. So Nadia Heigl really making a bit of a surge here for Austria, and I'm trying to think back to when we saw an Austrian rider in a position to win a medal in a World Championship cyclocross. It's quite a while.
Yeah, if ever.
If ever, yeah.
I can't remember one. Somebody will prove me wrong, I'm sure, but right now, no great Austrian cyclocross rider spring to mind. Daniel Federspiel, maybe he should have been the Austrian that was doing cyclocross, but one of the best mountain bikers out there from Austria.
Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to ask any questions at UCI_CX, the Silver Goose has said, what are the tyre pressures and what tyres are these riders riding?
Yeah, so it's the best mud tyre that you've got in your truck or your team van. Yeah, you need a lot of tread. You need as little pressure as you can get in on a course like this. And the only thing that's changing that pressure decision is the roots and some of the rocks that are coming through on the first section after the start of the lap in the forest. There's some roots there that you could get compression flat tyres on, pinch punctures, but most riders using between the kind of 14 and 16, 17 PSI, 1.1, 1.2 bars. Emma White, I think she's on about 17 or 18 PSI, decided to go a little bit harder. Emma White on a Challenge Lemus, the full Lemus, so the full mud tyre as Evie just slides off into the barriers. I actually went down to the start to try and see what Evie was running, but she was the last one to show up at the start, and I had to get out to
get back here.
Yes, I didn't actually find out, but yeah, it's a very soft tyre. And again, the UCI regulation on tyre width is 33 millimetres is the fattest tyre you can use. So most people will be on a 33 millimetre wide, soft, grippy tyre. And again, we'll talk about it a little bit more tomorrow when we see the under-23 men, and actually this afternoon as well, but some of the tyre manufacturers coming out with tyres with a softer compound. Dugas, one of the biggest tyre manufacturers, Challenge have got a soft compound, but Dugas is bringing out a tyre just for this championships that 6 riders are using.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that more when we see the riders that are using them.
Here's Emma White. Downhill, so 17, 18 PSI. Emma White running on this this bike as she goes safely through the corner. And we see Evie Richards just trying to find any little bit of traction she possibly can. And we know just how hard this race is. Suddenly, I think Harriet Hardin is suffering in this race. She is losing a lot of time. She was caught by Nadia Heigl. And now Kaden Del Carmen Alvarado is catching her as well for 3rd place. Maybe a little bit of a surge of adrenaline in that first couple of laps for Harriet Hardin, but she's learning at 16 years of age to ride your first world title. You're going to be excited, you're going to be enthralled by it all, and just sometimes you go into the red and then it's a bit too much.
Oh. To ride around in 2nd in the World Championships, and if she finished outside of the top 10, to have done that is such a great thing to have done and to have experienced. And I would encourage any riders to always try to do that first rather than just ride around in the top 10, because
yeah,
again,
exactly.
she's tasted the front of a bike race at this level, and all it'll mean she'll want to do it more and do it again. So
well, it's inspiring and it's motivating. If you're sitting at home and you're a young rider and you dream of doing this, then how much more inspiring going to be to see a rider who's that young in silver medal position in a world championship, and all she has to do is hang on, because she never knows what might happen. There could be anything goes on in this final lap in front of her, and to finish somewhere in the top 10 in a world championship at 16 is exceptional.
I think we can see the strength here of Richards. She's so good running. There's no recovery on this course at all, and especially this last part of the course. This run that we're looking at now, you go straight into a climb, back on the bike, quick dismount for a few seconds, get a few pedal revs in, try and take a breath, and then off the bike again for the 30 stairs. It's very, very difficult, and I think that's where the strength that we're seeing with Richards, and I think that's where she can extend her gaps. And that's probably the thing that's kind of putting paid to Harriet there, is it's so draining. And again, she's been racing for close to half an hour now, and that's
yeah,
at this, well, at any level, that's a long time. So it's you can see the difference in body language there between Evie. Oh, she's trying to get a gear to work there.
Whoops, Evie Richards got some gear problems here.
Looks like she's still not working.
No, those gears are not working as things stand, so Evie Richards has got some problems. How far to the pits here, Simon?
too far with no gears, for sure. It's
she's totally stuck in her smallest, biggest sprocket on the back. That's going to be a big, big problem for her. So you can see she's having to really spin. This is the issue. You know, we talked about her being the race favourite by a mile, but you just don't know. And we talked about gear problems. It's so muddy, and there is the possibility of falling so many times that you can just break your gears. Harriet Hardin there in 4th place. Just keeping the pedals turning over, but 2nd place now. Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado in orange and Nadia Heigl in the red. The race for 2nd place is 37 seconds now behind Evie Richards. But if she's stuck, if the gears have stopped working and she's stuck in, she's still, Simon, stuck. Biggest sprocket on the back, small and 1 single chainring. Look at the cadence of Evie Richards.
Yeah, I mean, she's got that buffer of the 36, 37 seconds, but that can soon go away on fast sections of the course where obviously Heigl and Alvarado are going to be in a, whatever, a 15 or a 17 sprocket, and Evie's looking like she's on a, whatever, 36 or something there, so it's soon lose a little bit of time.
She's now lost 5 seconds of her lead. Still the gear has not changed. She is stuck in a tiny gear on this bike. She's got to get herself to the pits.
The bike's rideable, that's the bonus. It's not an issue that's forcing her to run with the bike. That would be catastrophic, but again, sections like this, she'll run this next section anyway.
How far to the pits for the leader now, Simon?
Not too far now.
Okay.
From memory.
She's
trying to remember the
sprinting.
course configuration where the pit sits in it. It's just backwards and forwards all the time, but I think we're ballpark for pit 1, I think.
Well, these two riders don't know that the leader has a mechanical problem, and it is Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado, who was the early leader. Within the red, Nadia Heigl, 21 years of age. Evie Richards heading towards the pits in a tiny gear. She'll get a bike change. No panic on her. She's just trying to keep the cadence as high as she possibly can. Get into the pits, swap bikes. There we go.
She uses a very high cadence anyway, Evie. She's a spinner, not a pusher when it comes to gear selection. So her legs are used to going around in circles quite fast. But yeah, the bike will be definitely a welcome change for sure.
Yeah, this will be the most welcome change of a bike, and she'll be wishing they didn't go for pit number 11. Evie Richards on a new bike. 28 minutes gone, and now she's got some gears. And looking at the time gap, we'll give it to you once the other riders reach the pits. She's managed to get out of there without losing her entire lead of 37 seconds as it was at the end of that lap. So problems for Evie Richards, but she's now back up and running and safely out. And these two riders are in the pits and they're 30 seconds behind. So she lost 7 seconds, even being stuck in her lowest gear.
Yeah, so made the best of a bad job there, and with half a lap to go, hopefully that's her, touch wood, biggest issue out of the way. This is the sitting on the back wheel, traction as far out, just incredible technique there from Richards. That looks like she does when she's on the vertical stuff on a mountain bike.
It is incredible to watch, isn't it?
But she's used to it, she's comfortable with it. And it's not something you see a cyclo-cross rider doing very often, so it's a skill that she's got from a mountain bike experience. It's actually more usual to see that, actually. Saw Nagel there, actually off the front of a saddle, so almost sitting on the top tube of the bike.
Yeah, like that.
Kind of
The Dutch are going mad because they are seeing another of their young riders moving into a medal position. Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado now in 2nd place, Nadia Heigl in 3rd. A little move here. There she goes. Opens up the advantage on Nadia Heigl. Scoots her way through that deep rut. Here's our leader, Evie Richards, world champion 2 years ago, bronze medalist last year, and heading now towards the conclusion of the final lap of racing. Quick message, Raymond Semple. Can bikes be swapped between team riders during a race, or can you only use your own bike taken out of the pits?
No, you can only change bike in the pits.
But you can take your bike or a ride?
You could take any bike, but as long as it has to be within the pit area. So the pits are designated with a start flag and a finish flag at the entrance and the exit. So you can take any bike. You could take a bike. You know, Evie Richards could have taken a bike from the Belgian team.
Okay.
In the pits, there's no, yeah, but nowhere else on the course. So
here we are with our second place rider, who's now starting to build her advantage on Nadia Heigl. The fourth place rider is Harriet Hardin, who's 13 seconds behind Nadia Heigl. Evie Richards from Malvern in Great Britain, making her way uphill. And of course, Harriet, kind of from the same area.
From the same area, in the same training group, same coaching group. Yeah, she's you know, she's had Evie Richards as the inspiration to her as a youngster taking up the sport, and you know, it's almost strange to think that a rider of Evie's age, so whatever, 20 years old, is inspiring the next generation. But Harriet Hardin is one of those, and again, it has this kind of snowball effect, and we see the same with in Great Britain for sure with the likes of Tom Pidcock and the group that he trained with in his part of Yorkshire. You know, there's youngsters coming through that are being inspired by, you know, a 19-year-old, and it's once you get a little bit of success in either in a discipline or in a sport or in an area, then that just breeds more success. It's that initial impetus to get somebody successful that's the hard thing to do. Once you've got that, then it's so inspiring for the next generation to be able to ride and, you know, train or see somebody out on the bike that you know is a world champion, and just makes them a human being as well.
Yeah, exactly. You try and follow the same way as you do in training, and you just see how far you can go. Nadia Heigl just had a moment there of a slip and just had to right herself. That looked painful. Took her a little bit of time to get herself going again.
I think the slow motions give you more of an impression of how deep and thick and slippery this mud is. It's from the long shots, it just looks like they're riding on some wet grass, but some of these sections it is ankle turning deep.
Nadia Heigl just ahead. She looks around to see where Harriet Hardin is, and Nadia Heigl is a mountain biker as well. She rides the UCI mountain bike junior series. She's had a few top places in that, a fourth place. She finished first in a cross-country race as well, so she's mixing the disciplines the same way Evie Richards is. And Simon, perhaps many people thought that Evie Richards would just ride away here and would be 1 minute, 2 minutes ahead, but we've seen a great race with Kaylin Del Carmen, Alvarado and Nadia Heigl and Harriet Hardin all still in the mix.
We have, I think, yeah, it took Evie Richards a little while on that first lap just to get into her stride. I don't think she panicked at all. I think she was quite comfortable where she was. Once she hit the front, the lead extended. Obviously, she had a bike problem with the gears. But again, I think she'll probably end up, again, without jinxing her at all, probably winning this race by, you know, whatever, 45 seconds, and that's a comfortable amount. But it has been a good race. It's been an interesting race. I think having the youngster Hardin in the mix for the first couple of laps, I think it's nice to have the home rider, and I think this is very well deserved actually by Alvarado. She's had a really good World Cup season. Yeah, she's been consistently on the podium overall in the Under-23 World Cup, and again, it's good on home soil to have a rider on the podium, and I think it's very well deserved. And I think Nadia Heigl is probably one of the surprises of this. But again, mountain bike background, and this course is 100 metres of elevation on a lap on this course. It's getting on towards mountain bike lap. Yeah, height difference. It's tough. There's nowhere to recover, and again, it tends to favour the attributes of some of the mountain bike riders. So no real surprise to see her up there. But again, it's nice to see a new nation stepping onto a podium.
Evie Richards is pushing herself to the absolute limit here. You can see just how hard she is working. She's looking for every little bit of traction she can get. Her advantage now 37 seconds. Thanks for all your messages at UCI_CX. Thanks to Keith McLean, who's exhausted watching it. And everyone else who has sent us messages to just say hello to Simon and I and get involved in the action over the last couple of hours. Evie Richards sprinting hard. She's had the mechanical problem, but now she is okay. She's just trying to get herself now to the conclusion of this race. Over 36 minutes gone. And Evie Richards, who won the first ever under-23 women's world title, is looking to try and win now a double world title. Working hard uphill, keeping the cadence as high as she possibly can. She's able to change gear. Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado second at 39 seconds. Nadia Heigl at 53. Harriet Hardin of Great Britain at 103. Fleur Nagengast of the Netherlands in the top 5 as well at 146. Sara Casasola of Italy, 148 down. Emma White now 148 down in 7th place. And Adela Safarova in 8th for the Czech Republic. Evie Richards over the ramp now. Not far to go. It's going to be almost 40 minutes, Simon. You're absolutely right with the calculation the commissaires had to make. 30 steps now to victory. Pure concentration on the face of Evie Richards. She won a World Cup in Namur, and I think Namur's given us some indications of how well a rider will go here. Just the sort of course that it is. Evie Richards plunges downhill now, over this next little ramp. Behind her, there is daylight. She will turn the final corner. The rider from Malvern, the first ever under-23 world champion, blinking her way through the mud, sets herself up for the victory. We've had 2 races. Great Britain have dominated so far. Evie Richards from Malvern takes the high fives of the crowd. She celebrates. She is going to take her 2nd world title in cyclocross. She grabs the flag. Evie Richards, world champion of under-23, with an exemplary performance. Even under pressure, when she lost her gears, she still managed to take the win. 2nd place is going to go to the Netherlands. Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado. Evie Richards has pushed herself to the absolute limit. Whoops. She has fainted here after that effort. She put herself in a box, literally absolutely wrecked at the finish. Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado in 2nd place. Evie Richards has pushed herself to the absolute limit with, I think, having to ride with that gear. And Nadia Heigl is in 3rd place. Nadia Heigl of Austria, 3rd place for her. Bronze medal to Austria. Fantastic performance by her to take the bronze medal. And the 4th place to Harriet Hardin. These riders push themselves way beyond what is always possible. Well, the dream to be here is a 4th place in the World Championships for a 16-year-old.
Yeah, I think I'm going to probably find it hard to find a ride that surpasses that one this weekend. I know we're only 2 races in of a 5-race weekend, but for me that is exceptional. But yeah, I think we saw there how hard Evie Richards pushed herself as well. And I think she was in a situation where all she could do was lose. I think she was such a hot favourite for this race that you say it's easy to say that there's no pressure, but you know, everybody's expectations are such that anything but a win would have been a disaster for Evie. She's been world champion 2 years ago, medalled last year. So, you know, it's an expected result, but it doesn't change how hard it is to achieve it. And she's worked really hard. You know, since Namur World Cup, there's been training camps in all sorts of places, in warm weather, on cyclo-cross courses in Belgium. She's been all over the place to make herself as good as she could be for an event like this. And yeah, it shows that it's paid off, it's worked, but you also saw the effort it took to achieve it, and I think it was still an exceptional result, even though it was quite expected.
Well, those of you who are worried about her, she just fainted after the finish under that effort. Immediately there are doctors behind this podium. They will look after her straight away. She's just gone to the absolute depths of what is possible for her. You saw when she ended up stuck in her lowest gear, to actually keep only losing 7 seconds when you're on the lowest gear of your bike, where you are sprinting and having to just keep the bike going forward. She has taken herself right into the red.
And I think that shows how hard the course is, that she was in the situation she was with the gearing, and she's only still losing a handful of seconds. That shows how slow the course is riding. I think a lot of the reaction that we saw at the finish with the collapsing there was one of relief as well. I think it's a physical, yeah, she's put herself through it physically, but I think mentally it's just that relief, and I think that's how it shows itself sometimes.
Yeah, she's conscious. She's just pushed herself
very
way hard then.
But I'm sure in a few minutes we'll see her on the podium, all smiles and happy. She'll be fine.
Probably in the big furry hat that she's not supposed to wear, that she always does.
I thought that was her hair.
Well, what an impressive performance by this young rider, Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado. She led the race, then she dropped away a little, and then she came back again to get a silver medal. And for the Netherlands, that's a great start to the weekend. 2 races, 2 medals.
It is. I think their biggest chances coming in the elite races, obviously the elite women this afternoon, with some really strong Dutch women, and the hot favourite on Sunday with Mathieu van der Poel in the elite men's race. And again, the information that can get passed between the riders in the same team is invaluable as well. So Alvarado will be talking to her teammates, especially the ones this afternoon in the women's race that maybe don't have an opportunity now to ride on the course between the finish of this race and the start of theirs.
Evie, congratulations! What an incredible fight. We've seen you almost collapsing at the end. How do you feel?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I just was exhausted after the race, so just taking it in now, really. But no, I'm so happy, so happy.
Can you tell us a bit more about the race itself? I mean, the conditions, the mud. Is it something you really like?
Yeah, no, I love the mud and everything. I think when it's just such a build-up to the race and it started so quick, I just completely got swamped. So I was fighting from the start, and then I had a mechanical on one of the laps, so my gear couldn't change. I was just like spinning my legs out. So I thought I'd lost it then. So to come back, I'm just so happy.
2 years ago you won already, so that's your second world title. Is there any difference in the way you're living this second title this year?
Yeah, this one was bloody hard to get. I think the first one I got, I was just so pleased, and it was just so lucky, but I came from nowhere, but I felt like the eyes were on me this time, so I fought bloody hard, and it was not an easy race. The other girls were so strong, so I think, yeah, I'm just going to live it up with all my family here and just, yeah, really taking the moment. And
you must be really emotionally overwhelmed with Ben winning the first race, so it's a great day for Team GB.
Yeah, no, it was so good watching Ben, and as he went across the line, he showed Charlie, so we're all riding for Charlie, so Charlie will be very pleased with our rides, I think.
Very nice words. Thank you very much, Evie. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Cheers.
Evie Richards, world champion. Well, she's recovered after that huge effort, and again, paying her respects and saying why and what is motivating them.
Yep, it's great to hear them in the interviews. You know, it's a year on since Charlie Craig passed away, but he's still in the forefront of this generation's riders, because this is who they grew up with, and you know, they're still riding for Charlie for sure.
There you are, off the bike, and just absolutely spent, nothing left. That just shows what it takes. You see Evie when she's riding, the way she rides, she's right on the limit, but you think she's under control. But today just showed you how hard these young riders push themselves. The unofficial result, Evie Richards wins in 37 minutes 52 seconds. I don't think there'll be any discussion about was that race long enough. It for sure was long enough. Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado in second place, 38 seconds down. Nadia Heigl, third place, 1:04 down, and only 20 seconds back, the 16-year-old Harriet Hardin of Great Britain. Emma White, United States, there in 7th, and the first Belgian rider, Laura Verdonschot, down in 10th place. The American team with 2 riders in the top 20 run down there, so Clara Honsinger and Emma Schwartz. And we'll carry on running through the rest of the riders. Ruby West of Canada, 21st. And we'll let you read the rest of them. Well, Simon, it's been 2 great races so far.
It has, and I think for me, the most exciting race I was anticipating this weekend is yet to come, and I think the elite women's race this afternoon is going to be amazing. I can't wait for it. I think you know, there's for me, there's 10 or 12 riders that could be on the podium this afternoon, and I think at this level, if you can be on the podium in conditions like this, you can win. So I think it's going to be an outstanding race, and that's not taking anything away from the 2 races we've seen so far today. So yeah, they've been great, but for me, it's about to get even better. Yeah,
the women's elite race, I keep going back to the start list and going, right, let's select the rider who could win again, and I end up with 12 or 13 riders every single time I do it who could win the world title. So don't miss out on that. It's going to be a great race. A big crowd about to greet Evie Richards onto the podium for her 2nd world title as an under-23 rider. She's not been off the podium in the last 3 years. 1 title, then the bronze medal, then another world title, this time 2 out of 2 for Great Britain. A few little highlights of Evie as she pedalled away in her smallest gear on the bike.
Just maybe while we're waiting for the podium, a couple of questions that have been answered. John Sanderson asked how the number of laps is communicated to the riders once it's been decided. So on the finish line, there's a lap board, and then the big display that they ride under indicates the number of laps, and also the amount of time that they've been racing and the time they are behind the rider that's in front of them. So it's quite a good information board for the riders, that one. And how's the running order of the races decided? It's decided by the UCI, and it's usually in conjunction with television. So depending where the country is and which races is the priority for television. What we found is that before, the women's race used to be on the Sunday morning, men on Sunday afternoon. Once they split out the elite women, put them on Saturday afternoon, the television audience grew significantly, so they actually left it there to give the elite women a better television slot. And then the other races again just kind of tend to fit in around the 2 elite races. And right now we're at a situation with 3 races on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. Yeah, and again, that's going to change in 2 years' time when we get the junior women race. We'll have 3 races, 3 and 3. Yeah.
Interestingly, reading Twitter and some of the tributes that have been paid to the winner of the men's junior race from 2 World Tour pros. So Theo Gegenhardt says he remembers Ben Tullett being there at one of his very first races, about 8 or 9 years of age, as a tiny little lad and now world champion. And Alice Barnes, who now rides for for Canyon SRAM, says she's not so embarrassed now that Ben Tullett gave her a kicking back in November.
Yeah, well, Ben Tullett gave everybody a kicking today, so fair enough. The last question I've had is from Matt Roy. And Matt, the curry status in Valkenburg is not great, I'm afraid, so you're not missing too much. You're missing some great racing, and we miss having you and Mo here, but as far as the pre-race meal goes, you're safe.
Yeah, I think you're okay. You had a decent burger last night, though. No.
It wasn't the best.
It wasn't the best. OK. We're waiting for the podium presentation of this under-23 women's world title. There is the backdrop on the right-hand side, the figure of Marianne Vos in one of the illustrations there on the right-hand side of the podium. 7 times world elite champion and looking for her 8th today. And you'll never discount Marianne Vos. Even if she's not been right on it over the last few weeks, you just never know. Marianne Vos gets on a start line, she's going to try and win. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. If you'd like to send Simon and I questions at UCI_CX is where you can get hold of us. A few of you were a little bit worried about Evie Richards, but as you can see, she's okay now. There in the background, Christelle, who is the coordinator of cyclocross. All she could do was grab Evie's bike as she fell in front of her. She just couldn't get to her in time. But Evie's now recovered, she's all smiles, and she's making her way now to the podium to receive her 2nd rainbow jersey in cyclocross. Nadia Heigl and Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado are the 3 riders who are making their way onto the podium.
Followed up the steps there by the anti-doping chaperones. They don't leave their side now from crossing the finish line until the doping control. That's how under scrutiny the riders are. Can't drink anything, can't take a shower until they've been to anti-doping.
Yeah. Yeah, they're literally followed around now, and that's it.
Caroline Constantin from the UCI, the teacher for the podium. She's the one that tells the riders where to go, where to stand, how to do it, when to sign the jersey.
Three guys about to walk onto the podium with the jerseys.
About time, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear cyclocross fans from all over the world, may we have your attention please for the official UCI award ceremony after the Cyclo-cross World Championships in the Women Under-23 category.
Dames en heren, aandacht voor de officiële huldigingsplechtigheid van het wereldkampioenschap veldrijden voor de dames onder de 23 jaar. We gaan zo dadelijk beginnen met de officiële ceremonie.
In third place, the winner in this race of the bronze medal representing Austria.
Op de derde plaats, winnares van de bronzen medaille namens Oostenrijk. Een oorverdovend applaus voor Nadia Heigl.
Nadia Heigl taking the third place in this race, receiving her bronze medal out of the hands of Dr. Mohamed Waghi Azam, Vice President of the UCI.
En Nadia die krijgt de bronzen medaille uitgereikt door Dr. Mohamed Waghi Azam, de vicepresident van de UCI.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, in second place,
Nadia Heigl, the bronze medalist.
The winner of the silver medal.
Dames en heren, de winnares van de zilveren medaille, schitterende tweede plaats. Zij komt uit voor Nederland. Een geweldig applaus voor Harriet Del Carmen Alvarado.
A very proud moment for Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado, born in the Dominican Republic, now nationality of the Netherlands, takes the silver medal. She was silver medalist as a junior in the Dutch Championships in 2015-16. Evie Richards, new world champion. So she pulls on the rainbow bands for the second time.
Vice-president voor de Britse Evie Richards. Ook uiteraard de gouden medaille uitgereikt.
Congratulations, world title, Evie Richards. And then we have Kisses and Flowers League.
En de woorden aangeboden door de wethouder van sportzaken van de bijzonder sportieve gemeente Valkenburg. Nu applaus voor Evie Richards.
It's Mr. Remy Myers from the city of Valkenburg who is presenting the flowers and the kisses. First of all, kisses and flowers for our bronze medalist from Austria, Nadja Heigl.
Ik de plaats nu en Nadja Heigl uit Oostenrijk.
And then we have flowers and kisses to, of course, for the silver medalist in this race from the Netherlands, Celine Carmen Alvarado. Congratulations.
De belangrijke uiteindelijk de naam op de tweede plaats en Carmen Alvarado.
And of course we have flowers and kisses for our new world champion in this category, Evie Richards. Well done, Evie.
Evie Richards.
Ladies and gentlemen, may we have your attention, please?
And now for the national anthem of Great Britain.
Dames en heren, aandacht voor de nationale hymne, de nationale volkslied van Groot-Brittannië.
Evie Richards takes her second title as an under-23 cyclo-cross world champion. Nadja Heigl, a great day for Austria to take the bronze. And Kaylin Del Carmen Alvarado takes the silver medal for the Netherlands.
They can take us one step to the front, please, for the final pictures. We willen een stapje voorwaarts doen voor de laatste foto's van dit schitterende podium.
We're 2 races down, and we have got 1 race to go today. The 2 races, first to Ben Talent of Great Britain, the second to Evie Richards of Great Britain. And this afternoon, we are going to have, in just 55 minutes' time, the women's elite race. And there is about 13 or 14 riders who could win that world title. We're in for something a little bit special. Evie Richards signs her rainbow bands again, and I think, Simon, she's going to be extremely pleased to be back in the rainbow bands to finish her cyclo-cross this year.
She is. Just reminded me 2 years ago when she was behind the podium doing that. They said, "Oh, Evie, can you sign the jersey?" She said, "I don't have a signature." She'd never signed anything.
Well,
I think she's figured that one out by now, I think.
She's signed quite a few times now. Well, thank you to all of you for joining us. A huge crowd has descended here in Valkenburg. We're going to get ready for the women's elite race, which starts in 55 minutes' time. So we're going to look forward to that. We'll leave you to enjoy the atmosphere here in Valkenburg and some highlights of Evie Richards winning the under-23 world title. Bye for now.